It's a well-established fact that the media, especially in their current form, is indeed the enemy of all that is truth, all that is decent, all that is proper. They're the enemy of the people. But a lesser-known fact to many Americans, even if it is known to you, is that the FBI, which is also the enemy of the people, and the media have an incestuous relationship which go back decades upon decades, in which they colluded together to not only deceive the American public, but to shut down dissent from those who deviate from the narrative provided by the regime. Understanding this history, which you shall by the end of this video, will give you the intellectual authority and power to call out these corrupt institutions for what they are, and hopefully to hasten either their destruction or affirmation. In my opinion, the FBI is an institution that must be abolished, and you shall know why after this video, and the corporate media, which is a dying beast anyway, must be hastened in its decline because of this and many other reasons. Now, this video will not be entirely holistic. I will try to give you instances from our recent history in the past 5 years of the posting of this video, and our history from the 60s of the FBI working hand in hand with the media to deceive the American public and to defame their opponents. But I will miss things. Things will be left out because there's not enough minutes in my video camcorder. There's not enough gigabytes on YouTube or Rumble or anywhere else that will allow me to cover the full extent of the FBI's abuses or the media's abuses of public trust. But you will have a good working idea of it by the end of this video. One last thing. I define media not just as the corporate media albatross which exists and looms over the American political experiment, although that is media. I also define media as big tech and social media companies that also play a massive role in shaping the public discourse. The definition of media for this video, for our purposes, will be the institutions or the medium by which information is conveyed and understood. That will be media, and so we have a very broad scope. Let us begin our examination of the incestuous relationship between the media and the FBI. I take you back, my friends, to the late 1960s. This period of American history is full of much upheaval, of revolution, of conflict, of a lot of things. In fact, it's one of the more formative periods of modern American history. This is the period when MLK, Martin Luther King, and a lot of activist groups were getting started and were having major impacts on the public discourse. Well, around this time, the FBI started a program called COINTELPRO, basically a counterintelligence program in which they sought to explicitly defame and disrupt organizations they thought were dangerous to their control over America and dangerous to American government. You see, these psychopaths always use national security as a justification for blatantly immoral and unconstitutional behavior because they understand if they spoke their true intentions, it would be seen as specious and useless, so they have to use a term that most Americans in their bone on face value can accept. Because if Americans actually knew what was going on, there would be civil unrest probably much like what we saw in the harbor in 1776. But let's continue. So COINTELPRO was actually exposed by a group of citizens, basically the Citizen Committee to investigate the FBI in the 1970s. We'll get there in a second. And it was actually also put before Congress. So everything I'm telling you is not only public record, but it has also been seen and overlooked by congressional oversight. So those of you in my audience, because I know there is a person in my audience who will say this is a conspiracy theory, there's clear evidence that this is not conspiracy theory, this is actually established fact in history. Now, in the COINTELPRO documents, which were stolen by a group of citizens at the FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, they revealed a bunch of abuses of public trust. And one of those documents, in which the FBI began the COINTELPRO program, they mention how they're going to restore order and fight back against these dissident groups that are threatening the government, so-called threatening national security, and they mention numerous ways they're going to do this. These documents say that they're going to do this by capitalizing upon organizational and personal conflicts in leadership. So they're going to basically try to manipulate the organization's internal conflicts to split them apart so they're no longer a threat. They're going to spread disinformation, and this is the key word here, through cooperation of reliable news media, and they're going to otherwise inspire action at the same time. And they're also going to target specific new left individuals who are calling for a revolution in America and for the defeat of the United States in Vietnam, and according to documents, who had viciously and scurrilously attacked the director and the bureau in an attempt to hamper our investigation of it and drive us off the college campuses. COINTELPRO was made by the FBI with collaboration with the media to literally ensure they could have a presence in America's college campuses. He who controls education controls the mind. They wanted to control the minds of American students. And these new left groups, the anti-war movement, the environmentalist movement, groups, by the way, that many conservatives may disagree with, but they're still Americans. They still have the right to free speech. These groups were a threat to government control, so they had to be stopped. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The collaboration between the FBI and the news media to subvert peaceful Americans in the exercise of the First Amendment continues. There are other documents that have revealed in which they explicitly mention the use of the press to do their activities. One document, for example, says here that it specifies numerous ways the FBI intends to disrupt the student movements that are actually going against them. And one of the ways here says, number 4, the use of articles from student newspapers and or the underground press to show the depravity of the new left leaders and members. In this connection, they go on to say, articles showing advocation of the use of narcotics and free sex are ideal to send to university officials, wealthy donors, and members of the legislature and parents of students who are active in New Left matters. So if you were a student activist on college campuses in the 60s, the FBI was literally going to use student newspapers and other kinds of media to defame you. They won't even care about your positions. Your positions don't matter. They will defame your own personal behavior, and they will use it to smear you and undermine the ability for you to make an impact on society. Again, the media was complicit and quite literally helped along with this. More COINTELPRO documents continue to specify the role of the media in this foul enterprise. Another one here says that whenever the new left groups engage in disruptive activities on college campuses, cooperative press contacts should be encouraged to emphasize that the disruptive elements constitute a minority of the students and do not represent the conviction of the majority. The press, I'll say again, the press should immediately demand an immediate student referendum on the issue in question. So this FBI document here, which explains how they're going to disrupt dissent, says the press should do what we tell them to do. They should demand an immediate student referendum on the issue in question. Inasmuch as the overwhelming majority of students is not active in New Left matters, it is felt that this technique, used carefully in selected cases, could put an end to the length demonstrations and could cause embarrassment to New Left elements. The entire goal here, my friends, was to use the media as a tool to demoralize, to stigmatize, and to attack people who did not share the political vision of the FBI. This relationship has been existing for a very long time. This is not new. This shouldn't be surprising to you. Now, many of you may say, well, Christian, this wasn't the whole media. This is just particular people in the media, and how widespread was this? Here's the unfortunate truth. Due to the fact that a lot of things that happen under COINTELPRO are still unknown, and we only have a portion of the documents which detail these evil behaviors undertaken by the FBI, we don't know how widespread this stuff was. But we do know for a fact, a 100% certified fact, that this had an impact on the success of particular social movements in America. For example, The Black Panther Party, which was an organization that was very active in black communities in the late 60s, Malcolm X was really one of their big figureheads. And the Black Panther Party was the more radical element to the civil rights movement. They believed in carrying guns around and protecting their communities. They did a free breakfast program. And there's a lot of philosophical disagreements I have with Black Panthers, but they were still a peaceful organization largely, who may have views I disagree with, but they are still Americans who have the right to hold those views. So the Black Panther Party was actually a target of the FBI in the media's bad relationship. And particularly, the FBI weaponized the news media to drive divisions between the Black Panther Party and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which is also a group in the New Left. And one of these COINTELPRO documents here actually explicitly outline how this will happen. It says that they recommend the attached item be given to a news media source on a confidential basis as a counterintelligence measure to help neutralize extremist Black Panthers and foster a split between them and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, also known as SNCC. And the document was basically this piece of propaganda, which basically said that according to zoologists, the main difference between a panther and other large cats is that the panther has the smallest head. They were basically trying to attack the symbol of the Black Panthers to make them seem weak and futile, and therefore to drive their recruitment efforts down. Now, not only did this happen, the FBI then said in this document that the attached item captured Panther pinheads be furnished to a cooperative news media source by the Crime Records Division on a confidential basis. We will be alert for other ways to exploit this item. What happened after this? Very simply, according to the documentation, the operation was approved the following day, and the article appeared in several newspapers nationally over the following month. After these articles began to appear in the news media, the Black Panther Party and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee officially split. The impact of the propaganda was palpable. Now, this is just a fraction of the collusion between the FBI and the media. After all this happened, the committee to investigate the FBI, these citizens who did the job of journalists, funnily enough, we see that today too, by the way, they came together, they found these documents, they burglarized an FBI office, they released them to the public. And when they were trying to publicize these evil behaviors, most journalists, most media outlets did not want to touch it. The Washington Post, which has fallen from glory, unfortunately, in 1971, did touch it. But a vast majority of media outlets refused to touch it. You know why? Because they said it would disrupt national security efforts. They knew of the illegal behavior happening against peaceful Americans. And in coordination with the deep state, refused to publicize it. Now you may say, Christian, the deep state is so abstract, it's so conspiratorial. No. The only reason COINTELPRO was as successful as it was because, one of the reasons, was because the FBI worked lockstep with the CIA to do it. You don't believe me? According to, again, this book that I've been reading from here, that exposes the COINTELPRO and the FBI's secret operation against Americans, it says the Bureau's new COINTELPRO effort, after it was started, was quickly linked to illegal CIA domestic surveillance programs such as Project Merrimack, Project Resistance, Operation Chaos, which collectively amassed and in some cases circulated intelligence information in the form of watch lists on radical students, anti-war activists, draft resistors and deserters, black nationalists, anarchists, and assorted new leftists. Before the last of these programs was allegedly terminated in 1974, they had caused national security files to be opened on over 23,500 United States citizens. The deep state is real. It exists. It is a force that is still doing this kind of stuff today, which we'll go to right now. The best evidence of FBI and media collusion in our modern era, I can put it into three separate occurrences: Russiagate, Twittergate, and the media collusion with the FBI over the Hunter Biden laptop story, which kind of falls under Twittergate, but it's its own separate thing. These three instances show that the COINTELPRO relationship that the FBI had with the media is still alive and well, and it's still doing damage, unfortunately, to the American public. Let us start with Russiagate. Russiagate was a months-long, years-long investigation into the alleged connection between then-President Donald J. Trump and the Russian government. The idea was that he was colluding with Russia, and they hired a disgraced, disreputable British spy, Mr. Christopher Steele, and they then also used a dossier, the Steele Dossier, as the basis for that investigation, which was, by the way, paid for by the Clintons and the DNC, literally paid for by them. And the media, in coordination with the FBI and Mr. Steele, uncritically covered this. And not only did they uncritically cover this and say the walls are closing in on Donald Trump, Rachel Maddow spent countless hours on this.
The dossier has been corroborated by the intelligence community.
The dossier, in fact, is far from bogus.
I think we're going to actually have to stop calling it the infamous dossier. Increasingly, it's the accurate dossier.
The famous dossier, which is getting a lot more credibility now.
The Republican claim today was that the dossier has been increasingly discredited. That's not true in terms of the public record about the dossier.
Trump goes into a hotel in Russia, the same room that the Obama stayed in, according to the dossier, and he has two Russian prostitutes pee on the bed.
Mr. Comey, after leaving government, went public with that story in his book and on his book press tour.
The allegation was that he had been involved with prostitutes in a hotel in Moscow in 2013 during a visit for the Miss Universe pageant. I'm about to talk to him about allegations that he was involved with prostitutes in Moscow and that the Russians taped it and have leverage over him. I did not go into the business about people peeing on each other. And he interrupted, started talking about it. Do I look like a guy who needs hookers? I didn't answer that, and I just moved on. But I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013. It's possible, but I don't know.
It was raw intelligence, so a series of reports from a credible person with a reliable track record and a known, experienced, and source network in Russia. And so it was something to be taken seriously.
His credibility is not in doubt as far as I'm concerned. This isn't just gossip. This information it sounds very real to people who've been there. This is exactly how the Russians operate.
Part of a concerted Russian influence operation that never stopped.
Despite what a 400-plus page FBI report suggests, former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page says he is not an agent for Russia.
The president wasting no time, though, to hammer the FBI over this, claiming that DOJ misled courts in the Russia investigation by using the controversial Steele dossier as a factor for the surveillance of Page.
Former Deputy Director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, told the House Intelligence Committee that initial warrant would not have been issued without the Steele dossier.
They also hired former FBI agents, i.e. sheep-dipped assets, to provide commentary on the topic. So you had people who still held the ethos, the belief of the FBI and the deep state going on to corporate media and providing slanted commentary to bolster the FBI's efforts and to manufacture consent amongst Americans. And there are, of course, numerous examples of people who worked at the FBI providing commentary on this particular issue. So, for example, General Counsel James Baker, which was the former FBI General Counsel, he repeatedly, according to the New York Post, he repeatedly met with various media outlets and leaked different tales from the false Steele dossier, and he also met with other attorneys to push this as well. James Comey himself, according to the same report, actually leaked different things from the dossier to the media in confidential memos detailing his private meetings with Donald Trump. And of course, we understand what happened there. It made Trump look bad. It made Trump look bad on the basis of Comey's word specifically. Not only that, but Andrew McCabe, who was Comey's replacement, former FBI director, who was fired for leaking information to the media to manufacture consent, he lied on 3 occasions about his role to federal attorneys and the FBI's own investigators. He then became a paid CNN consultant who also began saying misleading things about the Russia hoax that he helped promulgate. So you have Andrew McCabe going from the FBI, lying to federal investigators, and immediately becoming a CNN analyst, a commentator on CNN. You've got James Comey talking to the media. You've got the FBI General Counsel talking to the media, all on the basis of what? A complete and utter lie. Paid for by the Clintons to defame Donald Trump and also to tilt the geopolitical scales against Russia, because we all know that Russia is the great enemy, the great evil, which is why we have to have sanctions which fuck up the American economy, make it hard for you to buy shit, decrease the value of the dollar, but allow the neocons to satiate in their fetishistic obsession for destroying a geopolitical foe of their power. I'm gonna stop, because if I go too deep, some of you are gonna get scared. I'm like, Christian, we're gonna get scared. So let me stop. You guys aren't ready for this shit. So I'm trying to translate all this for you. The depths of this is disgusting. Now, we have Twittergate. Basically, the FBI and the administrative apparatus, like the DHS, went to Twitter and Facebook, other social media, and they literally flagged stories they didn't like. They flagged speech they didn't like. They flagged things like COVID-19 views that departed from the narrative. They flagged things about the Ukraine war they didn't like. They flagged things about 2020 election fraud they didn't like. They basically flagged things that didn't go ahead with their narrative and which according to them, threatened support for the United States government. And Twitter, as the Twitter files showed, worked in direct cooperation with this apparatus to suppress speech. Again, another example of FBI media cooperation that went unchecked and had a deleterious impact on the ability of Americans to express their views about certain things. And a part of this whole Twittergate is, of course, the Hunter Biden story. Now, the FBI essentially, according to The Intercept, told social media to suppress the Hunter Biden story. And after talking to the FBI, Facebook limited the reach of the New York Post article, which exposed details about the Hunter Biden laptop during the 2020 election, which could have swayed the result of the election. Facebook limited that after the FBI talked to them. Now, I'll quote from the report right here. According to records filed in federal court, 2 previously unnamed FBI agents, Elvis Chan, an FBI special agent in the San Francisco field office, and Demlow, Mr. Demlow, the section chief of the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force, they were involved in high-level communications that allegedly led to Facebook's suppression of the Post's reporting. Now, why in the world would the FBI want to affect the results of the 2020 presidential election by suppressing information that could give voters information about who their president and his associates are? Why would they want to do that? You all know the reason why they want to do that. Because there is an institutional apparatus which has a particular ethos, a particular idea and principle that separates administration from politics, and they want politicians in power that will not scrutinize them or investigate them, but will bolster them and empower them. That's why they did it. That's my theory, at least. Now, there's an honorable mention, because I'm going over a lot of stuff, because this is not even most of the evidence for FBI and corporate media collusion, social media collusion. This is only half of it. But again, I told you, at the end of this video, you will have learned much more than most Americans learn in their lifetime. An honorable mention, and this is much less the FBI and more the deep state apparatus, which exists, by the way. I've established it exists. And if you want more information on that, go to my video about the administrative state. I will about how Trump and Vivek Ramaswamy are actually the foes of it. I'll actually send it. I'll put it in the comment section down below. It'll be in the description down below as well. The U.S. Navy had information about the submersible which went to see the Titanic, which unfortunately imploded and 5 people died. They had information about the submersible and its failure and its destruction multiple days before they reported its unfateful demise, which kept the media focused on that story, despite the fact that the Durham report, the Durham story, the Durham congressional testimony was coming out, and more details about the DOJ coverage for Hunter Biden were coming out. Again, the corporate media is like putty in the hands of these institutional forces, which is one of the reasons why I said at the beginning of the video, we should hasten their destruction, because they are enemies of truth. They are enemies of all that are proper. They are enemies of all that is good. They are enemies of America. This is a country founded on truth. This is a country founded on first principles. This is a country founded on the tension, the conflict between ideas. And these institutions are quite literally anathema, which is why I say we don't reform the FBI, we abolish the FBI. Thank you, Vivek. The DOJ, you fire most people in there, and you put in more accountability measures to monitor their activities. We don't reform the DHS, we abolish the DHS. We don't reform institutions that are fundamentally anathema to the American way of life. We get rid of them permanently. If this video has been chilling for you, if this video has been eye-opening for you, if this video has shown you the terrors, the depths of depravity that the relationship between the FBI and the corporate media and the social media and big tech, then you have to take action. Share this video, like this video, comment on this video, send it to your friends. Demand that your politicians that go against these institutions, demand that we don't just reform, we abolish. Demand and use these values that you have now accrued to inform who you will vote for and what you will support. Raise the alarm, my friends. America was refined and birthed from fire. The revolution we need in this country, the intellectual revolution of the mind, which I champion, will also be birthed from fire. But if our fire doesn't burn with the strength we need it to burn at, we won't have a revolution at all. We'll have an uprising that goes nowhere. But I believe we can have a revolution of the mind, an intellectual revolution that'll emphasize philosophy, that'll emphasize sound reasoning, that'll emphasize accountability for our government. Because as you have seen for the past 60 or so years, even longer than that, our institutions, which we thought would protect us and inform us, the media and the FBI, have been screwing us, messing with us, and abusing our trust time and time again. Don't trust them anymore. Don't trust them. Criticize them and seek their legal abolition. My friends, I love you guys so much. Like, subscribe, share, comment, do whatever you can to get our message out there. I love you guys so much. Study philosophy, be a reasonable person, love others, and most importantly, you know what I'm going to say? Stay pensive. Bye, y'all.